part 2, solving quadratic equations. We're going to be talking about a technique called completing the square. Okay, so the idea here is if we have some expression like x squared plus bx, and then we add this special term to it, which is b over 2, the coefficient in front of the x divided by 2, and we square that, then this thing turns into what we call a perfect trinomial square, so it's easy to factor. And the way that it factors is that we end up with x, which is this thing that's squared in the front, plus this b over 2 number. It's the coefficient of the x term divided by 2, and this thing's squared. So another way of writing x plus b over 2 squared is we could have x plus b over 2, that's just a number, times x b over 2. So we call it a perfect trinomial square because it's a trinomial. It has 3 terms, and we end up with the same thing times itself when we factor. X plus b over 2 times x plus b over 2, so we call it a perfect square. And the way we're going to use this is we're going to manipulate things with our equation so that on the left side of our equation we have a situation like this. It's x plus b over 2. Then we're going to figure out what our number b over 2 is and add it squared to both sides of our equation. And then once we get to this form, the x plus b over 2 squared part, we can solve our equation by just taking the square root of both sides. Okay, so let's take a look at that and see how it plays out. Let's get an example. Okay, so here's the problem. X squared minus 8x plus 13. So our first step is we only want terms that have x's to be on our left side. So first we're going to take this 13 and move it over. So we have x squared minus 8x, and I'm going to leave some room because I know we got to add that magic b over 2 number here in a second, equals, to move the 13 over, we subtract 13 from both sides. Negative 13 over. Now I need to find that b over 2 number. Remember, this number in front of the x is b. So negative 8 is b. What we want to add b over 2 squared. So negative 8 divided by 2, let me do that off to the side. So negative 8 by 2, so that would be b over 2. So what we want to add is we want to add negative 4, not just negative 4, we want to square it. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So plus, magic number here, negative 4, to square that. So now our left side, this side over here, written like the left side up here. So we know that that's going to factor, and the way it factors is easy. It factors like this. So we're going to factor the left side here. The way it factors is we take the square root of our first term, so that's x. It's plus our number inside the parentheses we had, which was negative 4. Squared. So all we've done is we factored the left side. And if we want to, instead of having the plus and negative number, we can write minus 4. Still have an equation, so here's our equal sign now. Now we can work on the right side. So here we've got negative 13 plus negative 4 squared. Negative 4 squared is 16. Negative 13 plus 16 gives us a positive 3. So I factored the left side, and then I just simplified the right side. Now, we've got, let me give this a little room here. Now, we're in really favorable situation because we've got something squared equals some number. So all we have to do is we can take the square root of both sides. One thing you have to remember when we take the square root on the right side, taking the square root number, need plus or minus. So it could be positive, could be. Taking the square root on the left is really easy. We just get rid of the squared sign. So we just end up with x minus 4. And on the right side, we can't simplify that, so it's just plus or minus square root of 3. We want to solve for x, so we just add 4 to both sides. And traditionally, the way you're going to write this is you're going to put the positive 4 in front and plus or minus square root. So we're really getting two solutions here. Really what we're getting is we're getting plus the square root of 3 or minus the square root of 3. And if you wanted a decimal approximation, you could put those two things in your calculator and get an approximate solution. Our exact solutions are plus the square root of 3 minus the square root of 3. Get another one. Sometimes this technique's less familiar to people, so they're a little intimidated by it. But it's really nice if you get the hang of it. So let's look at this one. We've got x squared is 5x. Oh, actually, x squared plus 6x minus 2, 0. I want to complete the square here, so I want to get rid of the constant term. I want to move it over to the right, so add 2 to both sides. So x squared plus 6x. Leave some room. Add 2. Now we want to add b over 2 squared to both sides. So plus, our b is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we're going to add 3 squared to both sides. Plus squared. Now we'll factor the left side. Factors really easily. It's going to be x and then whatever number's in our parentheses. So plus 3 squared. Right side, we just need to simplify. Let's see. 3 squared is 9. 2 plus 9 is 11. That over just a little. Now we're going to take the square root of both sides. We take the square root on the right. We need plus or minus. Taking the square root's easy on the left. We just end up with x plus 3. Right, there's nothing we can do to simplify square root of 11, so we just have plus or minus square root of 11. And subtract 3 from both sides and put that in the front usually, so minus 3 plus or minus square root of 11. Two solutions. So we have ugly, kind of irrational solutions here, but they're easy to get to. Let's do one more. So far our b over 2 has been a nice whole number. That's not always the case. X squared minus 5x plus 1, 0. We want just the x terms on the left. Squared minus 5x. Some room. Subtract 1 from both sides. This time our b over 2 number is going to be negative 5 over 2. That's a little messy. Messier than the previous problems, but we can deal with it. Add that squared to both sides. Still factors really easy on x. And then we had negative 5 over 2 squared, so minus 5 over 2. Even though that's ugly, that's 2. Right side, we got a little bit of work to do. You can use your calculator if you want. Here, negative 5 over 2 squared is going to be 25 over 10's acting up. 5 over 4. Get a common denominator, negative 1 will be 4. So when we combine these, we end up with 1. Oh, let me stuff out of got it too low. Okay. 21 over 4. Again, you can do that in calculator. Now we're going to take the square root of both sides. Easy on the left, it's a little trickier on the right, but remember plus or minus. On the left, x minus 5 over 2. It's a little uglier. We can simplify a little bit. Take the square root of a fraction, you take the square root of the top and then bottom, so we'll get plus or minus. Still just have square root of 21 on the top. And on the bottom, the square root of 4 is 2. And then we add 5 over 2 to both sides. 5 over 2 plus or minus 21. 2, and it's okay to leave your answer there like that. You could do that, or you could combine and get 5 plus or minus square root of 21. 2. These are either one here. So we get a really messy answer there, but it's really not all that hard to get there. Okay, so that is completing the square. You can complete the square if your leading coefficient is not a 1. I'm not going to make you worry about that, but you can check into it on YouTube if you want to.